We all know right now that first base is a little bit of a hole for this Nationals team, but there may be an in-house option that is not Joey Gallo, not Joey Meneses, and it's not Juan Yepez. I'll explain that after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on X at RyanClary11, and as well as the show page, just search at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. And to make sure to catch up on the podcast, you will see all the videos, all the shows right there on X. So give us a follow. Just search LO_Nationals. And also, wherever you get your podcasts, including over on YouTube, just search Locked On Nationals. Hit that subscriber button for me as well. Later on in the show, Trevor Williams goes up against his former team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. And of course, they've got their ace on the mound tonight, Mitch Keller. There is a little bit of a rain in the forecast, but let's go as if the game will be played. So we'll preview that one a little bit later on in the show. Also, I believe that this Nationals rotation, the starting rotation, will look much different come maybe midway through the summer, but also to end the year. So we're going to kind of look ahead to that, get my feelings on it, and you may not like it. I'll tell you that in the second segment of today's show. But let's start off with discussing kind of the thing that we have been discussing for quite some time now. The Nationals don't have a long-term solution over at first base. Now, you look down in the minors, Yohandy Morales, while he killed it last year, you can't necessarily say this is going to be the first baseman of the future. Now, I do believe in Yohandy Morales, but it's too early to tell. He did really good last year and worked up from rookie ball all the way through Double-A and was putting up stellar numbers without even hitting a single home run, which is one of his best features. So, yes, let's set him to the side for now, because right now, I think the Nationals do have a first base problem. Now, with all that said, I do look at the minors. I see Juan Yepez. I like him. I like the product that he has displayed. I think he could be something for this team in 2024. And in fact, he will likely be the first person called up if I had to bet. Other than that, Joey Gallo, I mean, some people are already saying that he's going to be DFA'd. That's just some fans. I don't think Joey Gallo will be DFA'd at any point during this season, maybe past the deadline, but I don't really see it at this moment. And then on the other foot with Joey Meneses, the two Joeys, you know, if they could just combine just kind of their talents, in my opinion, Joey Meneses' bat and his consistency there, and then with Joey Gallo's glove, that would probably be your ideal first baseman, but we don't live in fairyland. This is the real world. So going into that, if you remember back in 2022, Riley Adams was sent down to AAA at some point during that season, not to get work at catcher. Davey Martinez sent him down to get work over at first base. Now, this could be a little bit of a recency bias after you see him blast a 427-foot home run to left field over the 106.7 sign there. Yeah, I think Riley Adams could probably be not the long-term solution, but I think it's worth a shot at this moment in time. Keibert Ruiz, you have him locked up all the way through 2030, whatever, at this point in time. You all know that he's going to be the catcher for the foreseeable future. And Riley Adams does have some position flexibility, I guess you could say, because defensively, he technically is better than Keibert Ruiz behind the dish. But now with Riley Adams, one thing is starting to kind of come into fruition. His bat, which was kind of what a lot of people dreamed about, once you get a Riley Adams type, who's someone who has like a 55, 60 grade power, but it wasn't all that consistent. I think it's time to start dreaming about the possibility of Riley moving over to first base. Now, again, this is a dream. This is not likely going to happen. But I think the fact is, at some point this year, you're going to have to figure out ways to get Riley Adams at bats. Riley Adams solves a lot of different issues with this team right off the get-go. Step one. We all know what the Nationals needed this year. They needed a power influx. They needed someone who was going to hit home runs consistently And that is why you get a Joey Gallo in the building, just to have that threat. Because when you have Lane Thomas, when you have CJ Abrams, last year, Joey Meneses did not get the power done for this team. He was not consistent enough, did not get the job done. And so, on the other hand, with Dominic Smith, he didn't get the job done either. And we all know his offensive metrics were not good for a first baseman. In fact, they were some of the worst in the National League. You need someone with power to fill that position. Now, on the other hand, Riley Adams and his glove there probably is not going to work out. And Davey Martinez hasn't really explained or discussed Riley Adams over at first base, at least over the last year. But I think if you were just simply trying to get a power influx in this lineup, you have to find ways to get Riley in there. Just simple as that. Last year, while he started off blazing hot and he kind of cooled off there before breaking his haymate bone, Riley Adams is going to be at least something for this team down the line. Whether it's a backup catcher who kind of splits time with Keibert Ruiz, or someone who's going to DH, or if you want him in a more consistent role, you try him over at first base. Because it's my understanding that if you want to send him down to AAA and get first base reps, you could easily do that. He's got options left in the tank as far as I'm aware. And I think that would probably be a good little thing for this team. Now, the only issue is who's going to be the backup catcher? Well, you could have Drew Millis come up and have him fill some time there. That is really a solution in my opinion, because I think Riley Adams, just kind of having him sit away on the bench, is not really doing much for this team. Not only is it going to be a valuable asset for this team and hopefully get some power back into this lineup, but as we've seen over the first few games here, the Nationals don't have much power. Lane Thomas last year led the team with 28 home runs. That's good, but Lane Thomas is not supposed to be your power guy. You want someone like a Joey Gallo to hit 35 home runs. You need your Juan Soto back in the lineup when you know he's going to hit 30-plus home runs every single year. You need another Josh Bell. You need a Kyle Schwarber, especially in today's game. Now, you may make the argument, well, look at the Diamondbacks last year. They got to the World Series by playing small ball the old way. Yeah, small ball does work, but in reality of this, you all know this. Power is what wins baseball games in the year of 2024, and the Nationals do not have that at this point. James Wood will come up eventually. That will certainly help. Yohandy Morales will come up eventually, maybe in the next year or two. That will eventually help. Brady House will help in that. Dylan Cruz will help in that as well. And maybe if Robert Hassel can get some of his power back, that will also help. But you need a solution right now. You need to try something outside the box in order to get Riley Adams at bats. And the reason why I don't say DH is because I think the Nationals have better options there. I think you could have a more valuable role with Riley Adams, moving him over to first base and at least just trying it out. Because you can't just throw him at first base for the first time in the major leagues this year after not working at it over the last few seasons. It's just not going to happen. It's not reality, and it shouldn't be reality, by the way. But what you can do is send him down. Get him some reps in AAA Rochester. Have him try to figure out that position. Because at this point, the way that he's been hitting, and again, yeah, it's just one game, and that was that home run. But some of the biggest struggles, and Mark Zuckerman, I believe, of the MASNsports.com wrote about this. It's one of the toughest injuries to come back from if you're a power hitter. And in the first game back, Riley Adams hits a 420-plus foot home run to left center field. Those are kind of things that you want to see when your younger prospects are developing. These are different things that you want to see and kind of take an account for moving forward with this team, because you know this. Davey Martinez, Mike Rizzo, they talked about it all offseason. They wanted to get some more power into this lineup. That is why you bring in a Joey Gallo and try to roll the dice on him. That is why you sign a Juan Yepez to a minor league deal and roll the dice on him. That is why you do all these different moves, but you have someone who is in-house right here that you traded away Brad Hand for, which, by the way, underrated trade, which we never really talk about all too much because we rarely get to see Riley Adams. But those are one of those deals where you look back on and say, you got some value for someone like Brad Hand who's just there to blow games. That is a win. And if you were to kind of utilize that talent similar to the way that you have with Lane Thomas, the only difference is Riley Adams hasn't gotten his opportunities to really play consistently. You got to figure out ways in order to get him into this lineup. And yeah, maybe he's just good off left-handed pitching. So what? It does not matter. You got to find ways to get Riley Adams at bats. And I think that will lead to a better result overall offensively, because this is someone who has raw power, who can hit CJ Abrams in, who can hit Lane Thomason, because I'm tired of seeing those guys left on base. I'm tired of it. You've seen it all before. We can't do that again. So get Riley Adams more at-bats. That is from me. That is what I say. Let me know what you think in the comments section, or shoot us a DM at LO_Nationals over on Twitter, or tweet at us, or tweet at me at RyanClary11. That is where you can find your latest Nationals news and notes. Next, let's get into the rotation, because the Nationals, I've got a little bit of a hot take for you. I'll tell you after I tell you guys about our good friends over at PrizePicks. And guys, when we talk about PrizePicks, you need to know that all the different things with PrizePicks can come to your fruition right here and right now, because spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your PrizePicks entry today. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks, as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. And of course, PrizePicks has something for every sports fan, from baseball and basketball to League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Shohei Ohtani, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham, all in the same entry. Guys, PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, Georgia, and of course, Virginia, my home state. So guys, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is code LOCKEDONMLB. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, guys, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Let's get into it. The Nationals rotation, the starting rotation in particular, what it has looked like now. Now, this is going to look a little bit different from what it is, because Gore was technically the 4 starter, but the only reason why they did that is because they wanted to have something to look forward to for opening day. They did not want Patrick Corbin to be there on the home opener, and you certainly don't want Trevor Williams out there. So they put McKenzie Gore in the 4 spot, but we all know that's not real. The rotation as we sit here today is Josiah Gray, McKenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, Patrick Corbin, and Trevor Williams. That is the rotation. Yes, you may be saying, no, McKenzie Gore is the 4 starter. No, he's not. He was just there to start opening day for the Nationals, the home opener. That's all that is. But the rotation is going to look different. It's going to look very different, I believe, by probably mid-July, after the All-Star break, when everyone gets their rest. Maybe one of these guys are an All-Star. Maybe it's Josiah Gray again. Maybe it's McKenzie Gore. I think it'll probably be McKenzie Gore, if we're all being honest here. But this is what the rotation will look like come the second half of the season. Your number 1 starter is going to be McKenzie Gore. It's going to be McKenzie Gore, and we've talked about this for quite some time. Barry Sfaluga was talking about this in his story yesterday, or I believe 2 days ago at this moment. He talked with Josiah Gray even. They all know that McKenzie Gore has got his ace stuff. He wrote a story about that. I thought it was really good. Make sure to check it out. Again, that was Barry Sfaluga in the Washington Post. Read it, and you'll kind of get the better understanding of it. But the gist of the story is that the people believe that McKenzie Gore's stuff is good enough to be an ace. And I think that is kind of the trajectory that he's going to be on moving forward. Again, we have talked about the stuff. We've talked about all the different pitches that he has in his changeup, his curveball, his fastball that's hiding up in the high 90s at this point. You've also seen some mechanic changes as well that Jim Hickey has made with him that I saw someone point out the other day. He's kind of standing a little bit more left on the rubber that back in the day in 2017, That's what Jim Hickey did when he was with the Tampa Bay Rays, which then led Blake Snell to a Cy Young season. I'm not saying he's going to win Cy Young, but I thought that was a very interesting nugget. And of course, this kind of bodes well for someone like me who believes in McKenzie Gore and the talent that he possesses at his fingertips. This is going to be someone who will be your front of the line guy moving forward, but also not just that. He's going to be kind of like that intensity, momentum shifter kind of guy. You've seen it a lot of different times. McKenzie Gore, when he's on, when he has his A stuff, there's not that many pitchers in the NL East that can really outpitch him, in my opinion. Yes, I said that. The Phillies have some really good arms. The Marlins have some great arms as well. But also, at the end of the day, I don't think anyone on this Nationals team has more potential overall, even considering C.J. Abrams, than someone like McKenzie Gore. That is the highest ceiling kind of guy that we have. Someone who could be in the Cy Young race eventually. Someone who could win a Cy Young potentially down the road. I certainly think at some point in his Nationals career, we'll be talking about a Cy Young race with him. That is the kind of belief that I have in this young lefty. He's not going to be some stud pitcher right away. It's going to take some time. But I think if the Nationals are patient with it, and I think if they develop him the right way, which at this point, it seems as if you're taking the necessary steps to do just that, you're going to be perfectly fine, and you're going to have the front of the line guy for hopefully years to come. Now, here's where the change is. Because again, going to this year, I always thought McKenzie Gore was going to be the number one guy. They're going to give it to Josiah Gray because he's been here a little bit more longer. And of course, he was the all-star last year. So you're going to give the ball to Josiah Gray on opening day. But your number two starter is going to be Jake Irvin. Yeah. I think Jake Irvin is going to take this step up this year. Now, is he going to be the number two starter when it comes to 2026 when you're in the postseason? I don't think so. I would like to think at that point the Nationals would have signed someone. Maybe they have drafted someone in this year's draft, and that's going to be the number two guy behind McKenzie Gore, or hell, maybe even the number one at this point. But I think one thing that is very clear with Jake Irvin, the Nationals really like this guy. And kind of going back into it, Jake Irvin is like this analytical-minded kind of thinker. He uses all these different metrics, and he absorbs it up like he's a sponge in water. That is the kind of guy that, in my opinion, wins you baseball games in this year. Yes, I think Jake Irvin and his stuff going forward, all the different breaking pitches, the one different kind of bad thing about Jake Irvin is that he doesn't necessarily stay all that consistent. And that is something that we have seen from him over the years. He hasn't been his flat. Think about it this way. When you watch Jake Irvin next, which I believe he's slated to pitch Friday against the Philadelphia Phillies here at home, if you look at what he does, Jake Irvin starts out at like 96, 97. Then once he gets to the fourth, fifth inning, his velocities kind of starts to drop off. To some people, that may scream bullpen guy. But if he were to kind of take some off in that first inning and maybe just kind of sit 96 and hopefully finish that through 5 to 6 innings and can finish that velo, similar ways to what Max Scherzer did, what Steven Strasburg did towards the middle end of his career, I think that is something where the Nationals could really build off of because we've seen it with him. And also, you've seen it with him talking about the sweat. Jake Irvin doesn't sweat like a normal person. This is someone who sweats bullets, who has had to change jerseys, who had to change pants, even going into last year. And as we've all seen so far, the jerseys this year, I don't care what MLB says, it is not sweat-proof whatsoever. Not at all. So going with Jake Irvin, if he can figure out his sweating issue, I think it'll be no issue whatsoever for him to figure out his stuff and be that second kind of guy for this team moving forward. Next is going to be Josiah Gray. This is not a knock on Josiah Gray for being the third starter. I just think the way that Jake Irvin has pitched, especially over spring training, at the end of last year as well, in his first rookie season, Jake Irvin was wildly impressive. Josiah Gray was as well, but as we've seen, he's had a lot of consistency issues. You saw it at opening day this last year. Josiah Gray is a good talent. This is someone that you're going to rely on for years to come. But I don't think the Nationals are banking on this guy. And in fact, if they were banking on Josiah Gray being a number two kind of starter, that's probably wrong because that's not really what he is. If the Nationals can land him at like a 3-4 starter on a good playoff team, that is a win for this organization. A back end, middle end kind of rotation guy who will hopefully be here for the next few years. That is a success for this team. I think that is what they will be banking on moving forward, and it's not a bad thing. Josiah Gray is a perfectly fine talent. Now, followed by someone who used to be a good talent, Patrick Corbin. Patrick Corbin will be your 4-starter. I don't need to say it. You're not going to get him over Cade Cavalli at this point. But next, so we don't have to talk about Patrick Corbin all too much. We all know what to expect there. The number 5, Cade Cavalli. Coming off Tommy John surgery, someone who is sitting 100. What I'll be intrigued with seeing with Cade Cavalli is where will his velo be at? You may be thinking, well, that's kind of overrated. He's also got the curveball that at time of the slider last year, which looked really good back in 2022 in spring training as well. I really liked what I saw. I remember the beat reporters kind of raving about him and when his bullpens last year in the inter-squad scrimmages. Cade Cavalli is going to be someone I think that the Nationals will hopefully, just hopefully, have a resurrection project for him because he was a big-time prospect. People forget about that. When you have Tommy John surgery, your stock is going to go down. Simple as that. It's not the fact that Cade Cavalli is a bad prospect. He still is a good prospect, in my opinion. The only difference is people aren't really going to be all lovey-dovey with him anymore. You know? You get lost from J.J. Cooper in Baseball America, Jonathan Mayo, Keith Law, all these guys who cover prospects for a living. Once you have Tommy John surgery, you kind of get ticked down a little bit because it is a rare surgery. It's still not a rare surgery, but it's a hard surgery to come back from, even with all the experience that the Nationals and Cade Cavalli may have had. It doesn't matter anymore, but Cade Cavalli, I think, will be a solid project for this team. And if they can develop him the way that they used to think they could, watch out. He could be pretty damn good for this organization moving forward. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Next, let's get you a little preview because the Nationals are taking on the Pirates tonight in Game 2 of this series. We'll preview that game as Trevor Williams gets ready to take on his former team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll discuss that after I tell you guys about our good friends over at GameTime. And guys, GameTime is just great because have you ever been to Nats Park without any tickets? Well, let me tell you about GameTime because you can get tickets as you walk up to the stadium. GameTime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And guys, maybe you want to go to the Phillies-Nats game this Friday night. Well, I was looking at it the other day. I saw some nice Flash Zone deals. And of course, what you want to do with those Flash Zone deals, wait till last second. Trust me, you'll save some money there. And of course, they're easy to find and buy Major League Baseball tickets for every kind of event in your area, whether it's a comedy show, a theater, whatever it is. Lowest prices are always guaranteed, and event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc., etc. You guys will not want to miss this because, again, all you have to do is take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime for a limited time. All users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the GameTime app with code FIRSTPITCH. Again, that is code FIRSTPITCH for $20 off any Major League Baseball purchase of $150 or more in the GameTime app with code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. That's code FIRSTPITCH for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th only. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And tonight, the Pittsburgh Pirates ace Mitch Keller is on the bump against the Nationals not so ace with Trevor Williams. It's going to be a tough game. Simple as that. Trevor Williams, do I have to say much? Listen, Trevor Williams, I think, has a role with this team, but as we have covered here, if you're a first-time listener, thank you. If you are, you probably don't know my opinion on Trevor Williams, so let me tell you it real quick. Trevor Williams should not be a starting pitcher. He is not valuable in that sense. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad pitcher because I think he does have a role, and it's just not as a starter. It's someone who comes in for a spot start, someone who comes in and eats inning out of the bullpen. That is when it gives you a chance to win, hopefully. Now, with this said, though, Trevor Williams does have some experience against some of these guys like You can look at first base or Andrew McCutchen, like Connor Joe, for instance, has had a handful of at-bats with him. He's had 2 at-bats, batting 500 with 1,000 OPS, whatever. But even looking past that, you have guys like Brian Reynolds, who seems to kill the Nats every time he's in town. In 5 at-bats, he's got a 400 batting average with an 800 OPS. Really not much of a sample size there. Now, on the other hand, against Mitch Keller, you got a couple guys who have had a lot of at-bats with them. Eddie Rosario is one of those guys. I was looking at this matchup earlier, and in 7 at-bats against Mitch Keller, he's batting .571 with a 1571 OPS. Now, again, limited sample size. Jesse Winker as well, someone who is in the NL Central for quite some time, going up against Mitch Keller in 11 at-bats, has a .364 batting average and an .819 OPS. You would like to think that the Nationals try to find ways to get those guys in the lineup tonight. Maybe it's going to be Jesse Winker if he feels better, because he did feel ill right before opening day on Monday, and that's why he was scratched from the lineup very last second and replaced with Eddie Rosario. But Jesse Winker would be someone to see. That'd be kind of cool to see in the lineup maybe. But even then, we all know it's not a long-term solution, but it's going to be a rainy day. If I'm looking outside right now, doesn't look all too pretty. So we'll see if the Nats can even get this game in. And if not, looks like we could be scheduled for a doubleheader in tomorrow's contest. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Just search Locked On Nationals over on YouTube. Hit that subscriber button for me, and as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Again, search Locked On Nationals there. I will catch you guys on the other day, on Thursday, as we will be wrapping up tonight's game if it does get in. And if not, we'll be previewing a doubleheader down at Nationals Park. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.